All right, all right, all right. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to Teach and Preach. I'm your host, Dr. Dianna Watkins-Dickerson, and it is my pleasure, my honor to have you all here on this evening. We're going to have a wonderful conversation, and I'm so excited to feature some amazing women that are not just on the move, but they are, in fact, and indeed, women at the crossroads of change. Now, y'all already know what we do. This is Teach and Preach, where we teach, we preach, we reach, and we do the most. But here's the thing, we accomplish absolutely everything. Y'all, I am just so excited. I'm so tickled. I'm so honored to be able to host this show. And all of this month, we've had some amazing women in several different industries all over the country hosting them and getting to glean from their thoughts, getting to glean from their experiences, but most importantly, we have been highlighting and celebrating the ways, the wit, the words, and more importantly, the wisdom of Black women all across this country. So, I want to make sure that you are welcome to this show. This is the place where we indeed make sure that Black theories, womanist theory, Afrocentricity, Black feminism, all of the things that are Black and women are centralized. And so make sure that you put your questions in the chat. Make sure that you say hello. I want to make sure that I have the opportunity to highlight you, to welcome you. Y'all know how we do. So go ahead on, get into it, get in those comments, ask your questions, make your comments, and then, of course, invite somebody to the conversation. But without further ado, let's go ahead and welcome our first guest, and that is Dr. Tiffany Bell. She is an amazing, amazing scholar of communication. She's a graduate of Howard University, where she received her PhD in communication. She is one of, I would say, my favorite scholar, activist, sorors. She, yes, is a member of Sigma Gamma Rho Sorority Incorporated, and I am just so tickled to have her this evening. Dr. Bell, welcome to the show. Please take a moment to introduce yourself and tell us where you are.
Hello, everyone from cold Chicago. I mean, it's happy spring, but it's still cold. It's Chicago. We have that lake effect. So I work at Valparaiso University as the graduate director. So that's who I am. I also have a company called Bridge with Bell, and it's a communication DE&I company. And actually, our wonderful host here helped me come up with a theme and push me towards that. So thank you, and a big shout out to you for that. That was super amazing. Like when we talked about it, and it's such a blessing to have you and the things that you do. So that's a little bit about who I am. What I do, my specialization is intercultural communication. I also do critical cultural pedagogy, and I work at Valparaiso University. So I think that's all I got for you right now, unless you got an additional question about who I am and what I do.
All right, all right. Well, that is plenty for now. And yes, one of the things that I love is particularly not just us being Star Wars. I mean, that obviously helps, right? But one of the things that I love about the communication discipline is that we help each other. We're very intentional with that. And we use our skills and use what we have to ensure that everybody is winning. I mean, all we do is win, 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 no matter what, right? And one
Mm-hmm.
thing that I will say that's so interesting about you, Dr. Bell, is that you've had experiences to study abroad. You have taught at various institutions. And so I know a lot of that is going to come out in the conversation, but it's more than a pleasure, obviously, to have helped you with that. But also to y'all, this woman is a rock star. And so when I tell y'all I bring on rock stars, that's what I mean. So a lot of people, I think they're like, what is this going to be about? But I bring on rock stars, and Dr. Bell certainly is one. So thank you so much for joining this evening. Next, we have none other than Miss Chanielle Talbird. She is a jewel, okay? And she is so many things, okay? She holds a master's in hospitality management, and she is truly hospitable. I've been to her church. She's a first lady. She is an author. She is a motivational speaker. She's a doula. She is a healthcare professional. I mean, she has worked for the Memphis and Shelby County Health Department. I mean, what has she not done? I don't really know. But she is really and truly an amazing woman, not just a woman as an activist, an author, but a woman of God. And I know yesterday we were just chatting and we're like, we have to go, we have to go. We have so many things to do. But I am just so excited and blessed to have her on the show as well. And so want to just welcome you and invite you to tell us a little bit about yourself and who you are.
Dr. Dianna, it's such a pleasure to be in this space with you and Dr. Tiffany. I'm so excited about our conversation tonight. Again, my name is Chanielle Talbird. I'm a certified birth doula as well as a certified lactation specialist. Currently, I serve as a lactation specialist at Sandara Wellness, which is a women's center that focuses on holistic health. I've been serving as a birth worker for the last 6, almost 7 years now, primarily serving the African American community. We have a diverse interdisciplinary range as far as childbirth to everything lactation. And so I noticed after a year of practice, working towards my certification, a lot of Black mamas were not breastfeeding, and that really bothered me. And so subsequently, as I journeyed to expand my family and become pregnant as I was seeking these different certifications and the education, I fell in love with the process of becoming a birth professional because so many women don't have the access to resources that we need in the community to have the right birthing outcomes, let alone have the best breastfeeding outcomes. And so I've just been vigilant in the community, really focusing on civic engagement and finding ways to advocate for just Black families, Black and brown families, to help them to gain more equity in healthcare and gain more access. And so I'm a forever student. I love to learn, and that's one of the things that I really pride myself on, is being able to create educational spaces to help upcoming healthcare professionals in the field that I attend to. So that's just a little bit about me for right now.
Right. All right. Well, I have these lovely women here, and I'm just so excited. And you've already kind of gotten into a lot of, I think, what our topic is going to be about tonight. When we think about advocacy, when we think about stewardship, when we think about community development, one of the things that we have to ensure that we do, particularly as Black women, is we have to not just foreground what's going wrong, but what's going right. Right. And if we do think about what's going wrong, right, which Ms. Talbird is actually, I don't know what's going on, but I think there's a little bit of a technological difficulty right now. But one of the things that we have to foreground is that Black women are not viewed, they are not seen. They are, if they are viewed and if they are seen, it's typically as problematic. And one of the things that I definitely want us to kind of think through this evening was something that I saw on Instagram, and I sent it to the participants a little bit earlier. And it was actually a video, and I'm not going to show it, but it was a video of a young lady who assuming is wheelchair bound, and she's talking about Candace Owens. And unfortunately, I think, there are, everyone is entitled to their own political, theological, social beliefs. But one of the things that I think that we really have to think through is two things. Number one, there's an African American aphorism that goes something like this: it's better to be seen than viewed. Right. And those of you all that are from this context, this community, you know what that means, right? It
Mhm.
means I don't want to be seen at my worst, seen on my deathbed, right? A lot of times we see folks at funerals, we see folks, at the sad moments. And that's really what that phrase connotes is that I want you to see me at my best. I want you to see me when I'm full of life, vitality, right? Voracious and at my prime. Um, and far too often, society casts Black folk in general and Black women in particular at their worst. Um, and so, with that being said, the young lady said, Candace Owens, like, what are you doing? Right? You don't want people to be viewed that have disabilities, that, that are already marginalized, right? And she kind of calls her out. But here's the thing, what I saw was not just that piece, and how highly problematic it was for Candace Owens to take this particular stance, right? But I also saw the ways in which I would argue, okay, that Miss Owens probably deals a lot with the sexist and racist and white supremacist values, and trying to negotiate and compromise with that particular, not just to her own political theology and political viewpoints and social stances, but just some of the things that we deal with on a day-to-day basis too, right? And so in saying that and framing that, right, what are some of you all's thoughts, not necessarily just in regard to Miss Owens, but in regard to ways in which we can really and truly push beyond, move beyond, and thrive beyond some of the ways that we're seen as opposed to being viewed? So, with that being said, I guess I'll start with Dr. Bell.
All right, thank you. The thing that comes to mind right now is, how are we just seeing people on a binary, right? We are much more than just Black women. We are much more than just women. We are much more than our disabilities. We are much more than our degrees, right? We are complicated when we think about this idea of intersectionality. Right. Unfortunately, we don't allow human beings to be who they are. We say things like, you are this way because you're part of this particular group, right? You are this way because of that. There might be some generalizations about human beings. We can make those generalizations, but we know that human beings are complicated. They are complex. And if we're talking about Miss Owens, she's always making arguments about, we want you to see this, we want you to see this. But I would say, well, why don't you see that? You're not allowing people to be their individualized selves, which, when I think about humanity, I mean, that's how we survived as far as human beings go. So looking at people as more than just their identity group is essential when we're thinking about the how and why, because that's where the humanity is. You're way more than how someone categorizes you or how someone sees you, right? If someone sees me in a particular way, they are making a judgment. I would ask us to step back as human beings and to think about, should we make that judgment? Do we know that about that individual? I mean, and that's what I think is super important when we're thinking about how a person can be seen. See them authentically and not judge them by their identity group.
That's good. That's good. That's good. Ms. Talbert, anything you want to add to that? For sure.
Yes, I really appreciated Dr. Tiffany's contribution to that part of the conversation. From an educational point of view, the Bible says, "Blessed is the peacemakers," right? So I tend to come from that stance where, we talk a lot about inclusiveness. But if we begin to honor one another as Black people, starting there first, it doesn't matter what people see or what people view. We really have to take the initiatives to begin to honor ourselves, be honest with who we are, and not really care too much about what other people think. And I hope I'm answering the question appropriately, but I will also, add on to that. As far as Tiffany Owens, I really can't speak to who she is and her identity. But I will say that it
Oh,
is so
not Tiffany
crucial.
Owens, Candace Owens,
I'm
please.
sorry. I'm sorry, Candace
No, that's
Owens.
okay. That's okay. That's okay.
Thank you, Dr. Tiffany. We want to make
Right,
that
right.
very clear.
It's not me. It's not me.
Right, right. She said like what, Nina Simone, please don't let me be misunderstood, right?
Right.
I know that's right, but yes, but Miss Candace Owens, I can't speak to who she is, but I will say that one of the things that really it really bothers me is a lack of emotional and social awareness. And we really have to do better as a society to think outside of ourselves, and stop being so self-consumed about just, our peripheral view, our upbringing, our background, our ethnicity. And so to be able to see the world view in a proper scope, we really have to come outside of ourselves. And so that's my contribution to that piece for now.
Hmm. No, that's good. That's good. I mean, I think that you're absolutely right. We do get consumed with the question, right? How does it feel to be colored meat, right? We do get consumed with the various ways in which, the intersections of being Black, being female, being um, woman, being mother, being wife, being partner, being teacher, being right. And it does consume us, right? And if I were to quote one scholar that I often quote, Emily Towns, who's a womanist ethicist, right? She talks about not this notion. She kind of begins with Gramsci, which everybody that knows me, I am of the ilk of citing folk that don't look like me. Um, in the just as less as possible. Like, I don't want to do it, right? Like, my whole project is to write and to preach and to teach in a way that if I have to, I'll cite you, right? Like, I'll talk about Gramsci, or I've done the reading. Okay, sure. But she starts there, but she really flips it and moves and pushes well beyond Emily Towns. And she talks about the fantastic hegemonic imagination, and talks
Mhm.
about the ways in which, hegemony, white hegemony in particular, so white culture globalized whiteness, and whiteness as rightness, also as righteousness, right?
Mm-hmm.
um really pushes and moves and melds us all in this very interesting way to be who it wants us to be, as opposed to maybe who we want to be, but even who God calls us to be, right? And even then, I'm thinking about Toni Morrison's Playing in the Dark, right? And
Mhm.
how she talks about, the white literary imagination. And so even in literature, we're not even imagined in the most positive way, right? And so with that being said, I think both of you are so right that um there's so much more, right, to who we are. There's so much more to who we can be. And I think that's really important. And so with that being said, how do, and Dion, I guess, hey girl, she has some candy. And so I'm just
Hey,
trying to let
girl.
Dion listen. I'm trying to let Dion be who she wants to be. We already know that my kids
Be
like to
who you
hop in
want
the
to
show.
be. Absolutely.
Yes, yes, mama. Yes,
She's
mama.
telling you, Mama.
She's got some candy, which she can't have, but
Listen,
anyway,
Deanna, my kids might come up here in just a second too. You're fine.
but that's how it is. And I don't like to, push them aside too much, because I think it's important. Um because I am a mom, I am a wife, I am a teacher, I am a preacher, I'm all of these things. I am a veteran. And I think that's what happens, right? That we like to be siphoned off into these various places and spaces which aren't totally who we are.
Right.
And so with that being said, how do we advocate then for Black women, in particular, Black folk in general, to be who they really and truly are, beyond who society wants them to be? How do we advocate, and in what ways do y'all advocate for that in your discipline, and in your place of work and beyond. So I'll start with Ms. Talbert.
I will say honestly, a lot of the passions that I have been based on self-discovery, self-awareness, and lived experiences. For me, I started out as a single mom, raising a Black boy. And, some years later, got married. And I just thought about just different ways that I could possibly impact change by taking some of my own struggles, some of my own challenges, ways that I overcame. And I literally transformed that into a career. And so, one of the things that I always said as I was coming up as a birth professional was that I never want anyone to feel the way that I felt when I gave birth for the first time as a Black woman. And so that has really shaped and cultivated just this vigilance that I have to make sure that mothers are resourced in the community. That is one of the ways that I advocate for women. Also, just in terms of children, family, just bringing the holistic approach to family members. A lot of times men can get overlooked, dads can get overlooked, partners can get overlooked, making sure that we're bringing the families together. And then also having a personal dedication to my own education. I had to do the research. I'm not originally from Memphis, Tennessee. I'm originally from Jamaica. But I had to learn the culture of Memphis. What were some of the things in this city that has shaped and created some of the mindsets behind healthcare disparities? What were some of the historical experiences that really made an impact on generational and intergenerational thinking? And so all of these different things are really important components on how we strategize our own personal education. I did not realize that it was so important for Black women to see Black healthcare professionals. And so, I'm thinking, okay, this is just what I love. No, it really means something when you have a quality healthcare professional that can reach Black women in a way where it offers that type of community access. And so that's just some of the ways that I advocate for women. If I know that a woman needs, an early childhood educator. I always hate here, especially here in Memphis, we don't have quality childcare. Well, I'm glad you said something. So now I have a certification as a child development associate so that I can help other people find quality childcare after you have this baby, after you've completed your breastfeeding journey, you're going back to work, you're going back to school. Let's talk about childcare. And so here we are following the different stages of family from 0 to 5 years old.
Mm-hmm. I think that's really important. And I want you all to foot stomp how important this work is to be a doula, to be a lactation specialist, right? Just as a mother of 2 kids and still breastfeeding, right? And I say that on purpose. I say that to disrupt heteronormativity. I say that to disrupt anybody that is kind of still, holding on to a lot of the internalized sexism that we deal with, right?
Yes.
As women, like, yeah, I breastfeed. Yes, breast, right? I know it's like, what? Like, wait a minute. But that's what they were intended for, right? And as a matter of fact, Dion and D3, when he was younger, right? Why is this not like, hello, like, if you have these, you need to be giving me something, right? Whoever it is. Especially women. And so with that being said, you're absolutely right that, Black women, I think I just saw a study the other day about 2021, the statistics of Black women and maternal mortality, morbidity and infant morbidity, they were just through the roof, and they were the highest that they've been since like the 60s, I want to say. I don't quote me on that, but I believe that's what I saw. And I think I was just, kind of fooling with stuff and didn't really have the time to sit with the information. But I think I also didn't want to sit with the information because I had my own daughter in 2021, right? In the middle of a pandemic. And so in one way, I was a statistic. I got pregnant during the pandemic, right? But on the other hand, right? Like, yikes. But on the other hand, I got pregnant during a pandemic and as a Black woman, right? And I know what those statistics look like. And so I think this is so important. And with that being said, if you know a mom right now, someone who is breastfeeding or needs help, go ahead and tag them. I need my audience to go ahead and give those likes and those loves. Go ahead, because this is important information. And I want to say this just kind of as digital strategists here. Facebook is shooting down, the algorithm is shooting down content like this, where we're giving you tools for your toolbox, we're giving you strategies, and we're giving you life, and hopefully in abundance, especially since we're yet in the Lenten season. So I need those likes, I need those loves, because we'll sit over here, and if somebody is, popping it in a handstand and, twerking for the masses, not to say you should twerk. I mean, a good twerk on your birthday is great. Like have fun. You know what I'm saying? Have fun, do what you do. But it'll highlight those things. But when we're really trying to, I believe, teach, preach, and reach, right? And in I would say holistic ways, it doesn't necessarily do that. So make sure you comment, make sure you ask these ladies questions. With that being said, advocacy. Dr. Bell, what are your thoughts as far as advocacy, kind of how you're positioned and how you advocate for others, particularly Black women?
Okay, so I think that information is key, right? As an educator, I think that when I think about how I advocate, if I know something, if I know about something, I will be that person to tell you what's happening. So right now in Chicago, there's actually a play going on at Steppenwolf, and one of my friends actually asked me to go to this play, and the play is talking about Black maternal health. Right. So it's so anybody that's in Chicago now, I'll get you more details. I don't remember the exact name, so my apologies. But these are Black women creators who are bringing to light what's going on with Black maternal health. We know that Black Maternal Health Week is coming up. Our organization, Sigma Gamma Rho, focuses specifically on that. I think that that's important. So education is important if we're thinking about, let me give you the resources. You don't know what you don't know. Right. And you're not alone. So I think it's key. If I know something, I want to be out. I want to make you aware of what's happening. Do you have to use it? Not necessarily, but I want to do that. I want to act as an advocate. I don't want individuals to go through whatever, if I've gone through something, I would not want my sister to go through the same thing. I can say as an educator, that there's a lot of things that have happened to me within my career also. So I will make sure that I will give individuals resources that I wish that I had, things that I wish I would have known beforehand, because I'll say, please don't be like me. Right. And if I can do that, I think that that's super important. And then also when we're thinking about advocacy, something that really comes to mind is self-awareness. You have to do what is good for you. And it doesn't matter, right, that other people might not think that that's the best thing, but you have to do what is best for you. And how do we become self-aware? We ask ourselves a lot of questions. We get in conversations with other individuals, right? And I think that that is essential. Chanielle said something great when she was talking about she needed to get in the culture to understand what was going on. And she didn't even understand that she was educating individuals, thinking about while she's a doula. And she was like, oh, these individuals are seeing me. But I guarantee you one thing, you're in that position. Other people are now talking about educating. They're like, we have this wonderful individual who does all of this. Here is what's happening. And I think that that's key, right? We don't know what we don't know, so we have to educate.
Absolutely. I mean, y'all are hitting the nail on the head, and I want to make sure that the audience knows that you're free to ask questions. You're free to just pick their brains. That's what they're here for. And our goal here at Teach and Preach is not just to host a virtual lyceum where we are just talking just to be talking, right? But we're having a conversation and we're addressing the issues. And really, I love to bring in particularly Black women, because I'm a Black woman. I'm a woman of scholar. Y'all already know that. But more than that, far too often, right, I think we can kind of be in our own little silos and kind of off to ourselves and not have the opportunity, not just to come to voice, but to really allow other people to come to voice with us, right? It's always best when we can do these things together. And so, with that being said, you both really spoke to this, but I wanted to be pulled out a little bit more. Um, Stewardship, right? Stewardship. I think that is so important. And that's kind of where, um, not to say that we don't provide opportunities for others, but stewardship is typically defined with supervising or taking care of something. But I think that there's an ethical piece to stewardship, right? There's a moral imperative, even a theological imperative, right? To go out and to not that you're the one, right, that's, you're just oh so great, but we're all given particular gifts, right? Dr. Bell's gifts are not mine. Miss Talbert's gifts are not mine, and mine aren't theirs, and that's why we come together. And so, with that being said, what would you say, and I want you to brag on yourselves for a second, okay? So my guests are so nice and so sweet and so humble and kind, but I want you to brag on yourselves for a second, really and truly. What would you say are some of your gifts, and how do you use that gift to unlock and unleash the gifts in others? So, Ms. Talbert, I'll start with you.
I was gonna wait for Dr. Tiffany because I wanted
No,
to hear
ma'am.
what were her gifts. I'm like, bring it on. Well, some of the things that I do, I am an author. I've written 5 books, and my books are curated for women who are seeking inspirational literary works. And so my first book was called Have Your Cake and Eat It Too, was an autobiography about just some of my struggles and how I was able to overcome them through my relationship with Jesus Christ as my Lord and Savior. And so it's a really exciting, fun book. It's not a boring read. It's actually not even a long read. You get through it so fast because there's just so much good tea in there, you know. So I get excited when I hear feedback. But the other books that I've written, one in particular is a new one called Lioness Prayers and Affirmations for Women Leaders. As a female leader, it is so important for you to advocate for your own self, to be self-aware, as Dr. Tiffany mentioned so eloquently earlier, to also make sure that you are walking in a certain level of self-efficacy. So I'm very goal-oriented. I'm always looking at some kind of strategic plan for myself every year. What kind of goal do I need to accomplish? Is it a short-term goal, long-term goal? And so those are just some of my gifts. I have a really strong gift of administration. It doesn't matter what it is. If you want me to go open up Legoland, I'm going to find a way to go open up Legoland. I'm just a thinker. I'm a builder. I like to look at processes more so than just the outcome. And I get excited about new projects. And so speaking of project, last year we had a formula shortage. I was actually working for the Shelby County Health Department as a WIC breastfeeding counselor as a part of my clinical hours towards becoming an IBCLC. It's an international board certified lactation consultant. And right now it's the highest tier of lactation help. And I just heard moms, especially Black moms, working with WIC, talk about the formula shortage and how they wish they continued their breastfeeding journey and they extended lactation. And so one of the things that I did, I actually wrote a children's book using a training that I had as an early childhood educator. And so I chose a marginalized topic such as Black families, and even more marginalized topics such as breastfeeding and lactation. And what I did was I pulled from my own personal story, a beautiful depiction of a Black family working together, supporting mom, supporting baby, supporting older siblings, even supporting dad. His dad is in the background, but always finding a way to reach and connect. And I literally put together something to show Black families that you can absolutely breastfeed during this crisis. You can absolutely breastfeed during whatever shortage is going on. And there were some women that were so empowered to even relactate. And so I got excited about this because now you're adding another source of nutrition. You're helping your baby to become healthy. You're creating that bond that needs to be established. So I get really excited about my book. I've heard women say, I have read this book with my daughter or my son, and they love the depictions in there. So here's one. This is actually evidence-based oriented. And so I have an illustration about how baby actually latches on to mom, and a technique in here. It's a really simple technique, but how moms are supposed to latch their baby if they're using a mother-led positioning. And so these are just some of the things that I do just out of creativity, but it's really out of hearing the mom say, I am so frustrated. I cannot find the right source of nutrition for my baby. And I use that and I internalize it and I think about what can we do to offer a solution. And that was just actually one of my projects that I released last year. I got really excited about that. The Urban Child Institute actually purchased 200 copies of that book. And so I'm excited about that. They did that this year, and they're going to be distributing it throughout Shelby County. It's going to go through the Nurse Family Partnerships at Le Bonheur. Also, their Pinwheel Play sites that are distributed throughout Shelby County, as well as some local breastfeeding classes. So that's just one of the things that I've been able to accomplish this year with listening to moms.
That's awesome. See, listen, I told y'all I got some superstars, okay? Don't sleep on the teach and reach, okay? That's amazing. And so, first of all, I'm gonna call you out a little bit because you didn't even lead with that. We're just talking about this, and catching up and stuff. And I got didn't even say that. And that's why I say, like, my guests are always so humble and so sweet and so amazing. But a critical resource, right? I think,
yes.
One of the things during the formula shortage, I wouldn't say it necessarily affected me directly, but certainly indirectly, right? And it, on the one hand, I'm a huge breastfeeding advocate, right? More so on the scholarly side, because I think, I thought about, okay, should I get my doula certification? Should I get my life? I was like, I can't get any more. We'll talk. I don't want any more school. But I do see the benefit though, right? Like, as I guess kind of experience in breastfeeding myself, scholarship, all of that, and just kind of access that may afford me just with all of that. Sure. At the same time though, right? I press and I push, women, y'all breastfeed. It's not easy. I've had everything that almost you can have, the different challenges, right? And struggled. But I said, I'm the type where I'm like, you're not gonna tell me no. I'm gonna do it. Okay. I'm gonna go to the people. I'm gonna send him to the people, her to the people, whoever to the people. We're gonna figure this out, right? That being said, I will say that is absolutely amazing and an awesome, awesome resource. And so, like I said, y'all, superstars for sure. So go ahead and give her some likes and some loves for that. But I want to make sure that I attend before Dr. Bell goes. I want to attend to some of these comments because I think some of them might have been directed to you, Ms. Talbird, as you were speaking of the book. First of all, once again, congratulations on the book. But also to my mom, who's here in the virtual audience, just speaking to disparities even wealthy African-American women were encountering during childbirth. So educational attainment doesn't matter, all of that. But I think there's a question here, and I reposted it. How can all of us who want to affect change kind of do this on a needed scale? So in relation to maybe maternal health care, right? What would you say to that? How could we all support change?
Dr. Tiffany, did you want to go first?
No, go ahead. This is your expertise, okay. So I'm going to let you go ahead and talk about this. This is what you do.
Okay.
You see how they do, y'all? You see how they do?
So one of the things we talk about intergenerational relationships. Moms are huge I'll say grandmothers are huge influencers to moms, even though research study shows that a partner more than likely will impact change towards mom's decisions about childbirth and breastfeeding and postpartum recovery. That grandmother, that older auntie that everyone looks up to, that older cousin who has had, a few children and has her own experiences. Anyone that is a matriarchal figure within the family holds a lot of influence. And I believe that we really need to start there by educating older generations about what are some of the current trends, things that are proven, things that are tried, things that are evidence based, and be able to take the scholarship terminology and break them down into layman's terms to provide that support towards moms. I can't tell you how many times I've heard a mom say that she was discouraged from making a birth plan because her mom didn't do one, or she was discouraged from breastfeeding because her mom didn't breastfeed. And so here we are perpetuating some of the mindsets, the idiosyncrasies of the former generation, and it's not necessarily impacting change for the future. And so one of the things that we can do, definitely educate. We must bring in our elderly women. Yes, we want to be stewards. We want to receive their information. But if we know that there are certain parts of their practices or their personal beliefs that don't necessarily align up with ours or what's most impactful or the healthiest, then that's when we need to really bring in some mediators, or even creating spaces where we have, family oriented places that, all the whole family can come. Like, for example, I'm a part of the Shelby County Breastfeeding Coalition. I'm the membership chair there, and we have an organization called B-Stars. Dr. D, you may be familiar with B-Stars. So Tiana Powell, she's a founder. She's been doing B-Stars for about 7 or 8 years. I've been an advocate and a partner with her for the last couple of years as well. I just went to a B-Stars community baby shower, and it was just so beautiful having elderly, like all the generations, like 4 generations represented there. So those are some of the things that we're going to be able to do as a family support system to begin to teach so that we can reach a little bit more in an impactful way.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, this is all such great information. I'm sure you could speak for, days and days about this topic. And it's so important, right? Because, everything is, I don't like to say everything is reduced with breastfeeding, but I like to put it the other way around and say that formula feeding increases dental caries, heart disease, not just earlier in life, but later in life, right? And so if we look at it that way and just change the verbiage, I think that can really push us, right? And you're absolutely right, educating grandparents. That particularly in the Black community is so important because we pull from our elders, we pull from our mom, our mother-in-law, right? I almost got what do you call it? I want to say the spinal tap. No, an epidural, my brain. I almost got an epidural. My mother-in-law was like, you just go ahead and get it. Just go ahead, like put yourself out of pain. Not in a bad way, right? But that wasn't part of what I wanted to do, right? And I was like, no, this is what I want. I was also kind of scared. I ain't even gonna lie. I saw that needle. I was like, oh no.
I know that's right. It's huge.
I'm not doing that, love. No way. But in saying that, right, knowing that you have your own voice and you can speak up for yourself too, right? So kind of shifting, but same question, right? Dr. Bell, what are some ways that you use your gifts to impart agency toward others, but be specific about those gifts and those talents? Share with us what those are. And don't be shy about it.
I don't know. That's a good question. But before I do that, let me just share with all of you. Previously, I was talking about the Steppenwolf show when we're talking about education and what we're dealing with. And that is How Blood Go. So it's at the Steppenwolf Theater, March 11th through April 23rd. So for those of you who are in the Chicago area, I encourage you to check out that show. So let me just say that before. Okay, so before I get into my gifts, I made a few notes that I just want to like highlight, and then I'll talk specifically, I guess, about myself. You made an excellent point, and both of you kind of alluded to this. We think about this concept of education, and we're like, yeah, it can't stop there, but you need to like. But here's the deal: you need somebody who's a cultural insider. You can't just have someone down the street educating you on something, right? You have to build that trust, and that's why it's so wonderful, the work that you do, the things that you put out, because you think about how that's going to work, because otherwise people are not, you're going to have trust in someone even when you are educating them. So let me just say that. And so I guess the original question was talking about, I guess, my talents, the things that I do. I think that one thing that I do as a leader, and I think this is important, and I think that any good leader does this, and I think I have some of my students on the line right now. I looked, and I think, Gina, you're on the line. And one thing I can say that I think that I want to bring out the best of like a good leader is not like, you know what, this is what you need to do. It's more like, how do we bring out the talents of other people and allow them to be their authentic selves? I think that as a leader, that's super important. I'm always curious about what other people are doing, because I think that learning new things are really important, right? And so you're like, well, what specific things have you done in regards to that? So we're talking about books. We're talking about things that I guess specifically that I've done recently. And I kind of put this in my LinkedIn profile. I just wrote an article that's called The Pedagogy of Renewal, Black Women Reclaiming Joy and Self-Care as a Praxis, right? And so I wrote this article. And in this article, we're talking about the pandemic. We're talking about racial battle fatigue. We talk a lot about what happens when you stand in front of the classroom. I am a Black biracial woman, often looking racially ambiguous, right? I mean, and those are the issues that I have to deal with within the context of the classroom. But if I know myself, right, I think that's super important. So the essay goes on and it talks about that. It talks about this idea of how am I going to reclaim my joy within the context of the classroom. We know right now education is in a crisis mode, right? We know that when we think about educators, people are leaving in droves, but we're going to need educators, right? And we're going to need educators to reframe how they think about themselves, how they think about their students, how they think about the world. And so what I really think one of my gifts is to pull out, like I said, the excellence in students, right? So a lot of times, specifically in this article, I have a contract that I have students work on, and it's their own contract, because you have to find your own agency in the work you do. I can go and tell you everything and blah 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 blah, and Dianna, you know this as a teacher as well, but it's really about how can I pull out your excellence, because that is what it is about, right? When you are in front of the classroom, how can we make better people in a better world? So I think that that's probably one of my talents. I am also, I think, a pretty passionate person. I am in the middle of writing a public speaking textbook, and we're looking at it from a cultural kind of like standpoint. So when we look at public speaking, we don't want to look at it from this like Eurocentric idea, right? Like, oh, we want it to just be this. You have to like Aristotle. So, Aristotle, you do 1, 2, and 3. But how do you talk about public speaking? Because I think right now, when we're thinking about what's going on right now, we're doing teach and preach. There are many ways to put messages. There are many ways for messages to come across. There is not just one way for a message to come across, right? And people have been doing this for years and years. And I think that we need to celebrate different ways that people are communicating messages, how they get forth. So that's a lot of the things that we're doing. And also in the textbook, we really put kind of a historical spin on it, because unfortunately, as human beings, we often think we have a short memory when it comes to history, right? We really do have a short memory, or we're thinking something was so long ago. What we're trying to do is say, okay, how do we, like, things that are happening today, and we know what's going on right now in society. Those are things that things that happened historically aren't so long ago, and they've probably happened before, right? And not that it repeats itself. I think that is too simplistic, but we think about things circular. And in the way in which someone is at the present moment, like right now, we're talking online. We have this beautiful way of talking, but what does that mean overall? So that's a lot of what my public speaking book kind of focuses on. And then also I have a business, Bridge with Bell. And so I had the pleasure of talking to some people in the federal government about ideas of like ethnocentrism. And when I talk about ethnocentrism, that's this idea of thinking that your way of doing things is superior. So if you note it like me, but no, let's think about outside of ourselves. How are we going to communicate with people the way they want to be communicated with, not necessarily how we want? And that's where I kind of get at that self-awareness. So I really am interested in bringing out the excellence in other people. I mean, that really is why I think it's important. And why? Because when I was a little girl, I can remember people who were my educators. They brought the best out of me. Like, they changed me. I didn't necessarily have the best home life, as Dianna knows. And so when we think about that, the community was there for me. And that's why I'm an educator. That's why I do the things that I do, whether it is in the classroom or educating people in the federal government or other teachers. I think that's important. So I would say that I don't know if I told you what my skills are or what I'm best at, but I think that's it. Thank you.
No, I think you did. I mean, I think that, building bridges with Bell, right? And taking a lot of your experiences, right? Whether they be experiences growing up multiracial, multicultural, right? Study abroad in China, teaching at various places and spaces. And then, of course, communication is not just about talking, right? But it's so much more than that. And I think if you can teach public speaking, you're a winner. I mean, there are, what did they say? The two things that people fear the most is death and public speaking. And most people fear public speaking more, which means they would rather be in the casket, as the joke goes. And so if you can survive teaching that, and you can survive just a whole program focused on messaging, making messages, I think you're a winner, right? But more than that, though, right? I think advocacy in the classroom. These are our future leaders of tomorrow. These are the people that maybe won't be writing the next political speeches or running for governor or what have you, but maybe they're going to operate on you, right? And I hope that they can communicate in a particular way, and I hope that they're in touch with themselves to an extent, right? Because I don't need you being all, depressed, despondent, and distressed and beside yourself operating on me. I'm just saying, right? I need you to come to voice. But beyond that, though, right, I think that a lot of the quote that was shared, and for those of you that do not know, one of the things that I do for this show in preparation is share on all social media platforms, particularly on Instagram and Facebook. You can follow me at Dr. DNWD, so DRDNWD on all platforms: Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn.
Hello. Hello.
It seems like she got frozen there for a second.
I think so.
Yeah, hopefully
Let's
it'll.
see. Hopefully it will work. I can hear you, so I think that we're both on the line.
Yeah.
Yeah. Here. I'm trying to make connections. So
there we go.
We got cut off a little bit. Hello?
Can you hear us, Dr. D? Okay, it seems like she's working out some technical difficulties there. Dr. Tiffany
What'd you say? Oh, wait, hold
There we
on.
go.
Hello?
All right, there we go. There we go. I don't know really what's going on here. So
Hey,
I think we're back. But
okay.
I was gonna keep on talking on. We're gonna yet
Let,
press toward the mark,
let,
okay? I
listen,
just know.
technology works. Listen, technology works until it doesn't. But on that note, can I just say one thing? And you're like, really, Dr. Bell? But yeah, I think that you kind of hit on some things when you're talking about the classroom and all this stuff. So one other thing I want to talk about is that is essential and important, and we're thinking about that we're at a crossroads here because I know that that's what the name of what's going on is this idea that to deal with conflict, right? In public speaking, when we're thinking about a debate, when we're thinking about conflict, I think that is our responsibility to think about how people can deal with conflict in a good way. Unfortunately, um, within recent history, I can say that I think that it's hard for us to deal with conflict, but I think that kind of when we have healthy conflict, there's all conflict is not bad. We are human beings. We are inevitable and we are not going to always agree with each other. But I think that another thing is to kind of how do we deal with that and how do we talk about that because it's not an easy thing to talk about. I mean, that's the thing that makes people feel uncomfortable. Think about it when we're like, oh, we're going to get on here and people are going to, they're going to come for us on the internet. But how do we deal with that in a good way so we can make a better society? I think that also is an important part of when we think about communication and why it's essential for people to look at it at a deeper level than just like, public speaking itself. So let me just add to that because we all know it's a lot of conflict going on. People got a lot of things to say. But I think that I want us to, like when you're in my classroom or when we're having conversations, I do want to allow other people. That's why I said I want to pull out things from you, the time and space. Even if you don't agree with me, it is okay to not agree with the things that I'm saying.
Right. No, but I think you make an awesome point. If we always agree and we agree on every little thing, I mean, life is kind of boring, right? It's very boring. And so with that being said, one of the things that I was trying to say until I froze was pulling out you all's quotes. So Dr. Bell said, I've learned to embrace the concept of perfectly imperfect, which has transformed my self-care. And it doesn't have to be perfect. This broadcast wasn't perfect. I mean, I just went out, the whole host went out for however long, I don't even know. But
Right.
all we can do is our best. All we can do is try to ensure that not just we're doing the best that we can with our gifts and talents, but ensuring that we unlock and unleash that in others. And then Ms. Talbird actually, in her quote, kind of along the same lines, right? God has been working and advocating on behalf of righteous women to fulfill their calling. And so, I mean, that's really the question, right? What is your calling? And so I guess we'll end there. I want to be respectful to my guests, their time, to all of you, our audience. Go ahead, more likes and more loves. Put in your last questions and comments because we are going to wrap up shortly. If you're interested in sponsoring a broadcast, feel free to contact me at Dianna Watkins-Dickerson at gmail.com. But I want to make sure that we take the time and just really allow these women to not just close out, but to leave us with a good nugget of wisdom. We've kind of already talked about community development. We've kind of already talked about how we can really push others to be who they need to be. But what are some last?
Dr. D, you're on mute.
Mute. You're on mute. Dr. D, you're on mute. We can't hear you.
Damn it. Oh, dadgum.
You were in it too, sis. I wanted to hear what you had to say.
We're going to close out because I want to be respectful of your time. But more than that, I want us to close out with some nuggets of wisdom. So I apologize for being on mute there, you all. What are some nuggets just to leave our audience with, in particular with the topic, women at the crossroads of change? Nuggets of wisdom that you all have, that you feel are necessary in this moment. So we will start with Dr. Bell and then we will end with Ms. Talbird.
All right. So your journey can't be defined by anyone else. Anyone who listens to my voicemail, I say that. But I mean that when you're at a crossroads. Change is inevitable in life, wherever you are, whatever you're doing. Um, it's going to happen, right? And it will only make you better. So your journey cannot be defined by anyone else. So thank you.
Mm. That's really good. That's really good, Ms. Talbird.
So initially, I love to say, blessed are the peacemakers. But if you want peace, you have to make war. And so many times, women, we are so muzzled by fear of what other people think or how we'll be viewed. And so I just want to leave just a few pearls of wisdom, making sure that your voice is heard, making sure that you know how to navigate in certain rooms and spaces and audiences. Be committed to listening to your own voice. If we're truly going to be at a place of impact, we have to be able to arrive to those crossroads with just some eloquent words so that we can not just get our point across, but really impact change. And so, as a woman who has struggled with her own voice over the years, I have really had to look deep into myself and realize that the thing that is coming between myself and my calling is my voice. And so, I just hope that any woman who is struggling with their own voice, I want you to know that your voice is going to be the thing that's going to make peace.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. I
Yes.
think that is so good. Such awesome nuggets of wisdom. You all have been absolute jewels. Thank you so, so much. Please don't leave just yet. I want to see you after, but y'all give them a hand clap of praise. Go ahead, give those likes and those loves. You already know what to do. These women have been not just dynamic, but they have really and truly not just encouraged maybe you, but they've encouraged me. I don't know if you've been encouraged or you've learned something. Please let us know. Tell us what you learned in the comments. If you learned something, say I learned something. If you got a pearl of wisdom, please make sure you say I got a pearl of wisdom and be specific to what it was. I mean, your journey is not anyone else's. And I definitely cannot just attest to that, but I know that the race is not given to the swift, but what? Those who endure. And so in this season, I would like to just encourage everyone that is watching, everyone that has just taken the time, not just to support this teach and preach, but if you've been before, thank you so much for joining. Thank you so much for your questions, your comments, your encouragement. And I already know you're encouraging someone else. Sometimes we think that the fastest way there is straight to the destination, point A to point B. But I'm going to tell you what, sometimes when we think about the verse, the race is not given to the swift, but those that endure, it's about stopping along the way and enjoying the journey. Ms. Talbert talked about enjoying the process. And I have to say, I slightly disagree with her because I'm not a process person. I'm not the most gifted person administratively. I'm not the best person for the job when it comes to putting the plans all together. I'm more of the person, let's get her done. This is what the end goal is. But over the years, I have to say, even though I might disagree with her on the surface, I think what she said is so important. You have to understand what the process is to ensure that the plan makes it toward the end. And also, too, Dr. Bell, when she said your journey is not someone else's, you can look at a mentor. You can look at someone that you want to emulate, that you want to preach like, that you want to teach like, maybe that you want to write with, or maybe just someone who loves in a very particular way and you want to be able to love in the same way. Well, I would say, obviously, being that this is the teach and preach, let's emulate God. Let's emulate the one who is and always will be. But when we do that, we have to know that along the journey, it's going to be a few little turns. It's going to be a few times where you're going to have to bob and weave. There are going to be some times where you are going to meet conflict, and that's okay. There are going to be times when you get into a room where your voice is the one that is going to unlock and unleash the potential for someone else. And I have a question. Are you going to be willing to do it? Are you going to be willing to put yourself on the line to ensure that you are going for it and answering the call? Maybe it's the call to serve in the classroom. Maybe it's the call to serve in the military. Maybe it's the call to be the best mother, the best wife. Maybe it's to be the best chef. Whatever it is, answer that call and make sure that you are a woman that is trying to stand at the crossroads of change. Thank you so much to everyone who has joined. Thank you so much for those likes and those loves. Continue to share, continue to comment. We'll see you again next week here at Teach and Preach, the Virtual Lyceum. I am your resident womanist rhetorician, Dianna Nicole Watkins-Dickerson, and I am so glad that you met me here. God bless you during this Lenten season, and I'll see you next week at 7 p.m. Central Standard Time. Bye, everyone. Thank you so much for joining.